my 20s, I was just running around. That was my 20s. I ran around, I partied, I clubbed, I have funny stories to tell. But in the back of my mind, I always wanted to be in a relationship. I just didn't know how to be. That was my Achilles heel. So I would get opportunities to be with people. I would be with them, but it was never successful because I didn't have the tools that I have now. I didn't know how to vet a partner. I was like, oh man, as long as she's good looking and we have a fun time, we are going to ride this roller coaster till the wheels fall off.
And then the wheels fell off.
Exactly. And then the wheels fell off. And then the roller coaster crashed. And then I'm sitting at the bottom. What happened?
What happened to my perfect ride?
Exactly. What happened to my perfect ride? And that was my 20s. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until my 30s when, you go through a little bit of heartbreak, you go through some things that you start to say, I need to change the game plan that I'm using. This one's not working. Yeah. So I try to speak to younger audiences or many people that when you're looking for love or you're looking to date, you need to be intentional.
Yes.
And it was something that I never had. So when I hear Vante's story about how direct he was, I didn't have that. Right? But now I do. I make my intentions very known. So, and I think when you do that and anyone can chime in, you're either going to pull in the right people and scare off the wrong ones.
Well, totally. Everything is about the intention of why you are doing something. It's like this is probably a little bit off topic, but like, go ahead. Should a woman cook for a man? And so there's different perspectives that you can look at this. Well, what's your intention for doing it? Are you cooking for him because that's who you are authentically, and you're just like cooking? You're like, hey, come share a meal with me. Or are you cooking for him? Is your intention to make him like you? Because that's a totally different energy, if that's not authentically who you are, you're not a cook, but you're trying to cook for him to make him like you. That's a whole different intention. So yeah, I just going off of being intentional. I think being intentional and then saying, okay, why am I doing this thing? What am I trying to do here? And then is this like authentically who I am to be even doing this? And I like that as a measuring stick when you're dating. What's the intention? Is it authentically me? And if it's off, then don't do those things, but it's not about you shouldn't cook for a man because that's a bad thing to do. Don't do anything, or for a man, don't cook for him because then you're going to look like you're desperate. You know what I mean? Now, if you're doing it to make him like you, yeah, that's probably going to come off energetically desperate. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
You know what? We can go there because again, this tonight's podcast is about us branching into different venues. So if we want to go, because from what it sounds like is what you're talking about is unconditional love, and we can discuss if all of us agree on it, conditional over non-conditional. So what she's talking about is if you're only doing things to get love in return, that's transactional love. You're saying, well, I'll cook you meals and I'll pick up your suits and I'll do X, Y, and Z for you, but you need to give me something in return.
Yes.
Or you say, I'm just genuinely like this as a human being. This is who I am. I like to cook. I like to clean. I like to take care of my person.
Yeah.
That's a whole different ball game.
I like that energy. That's a peaceful energy.
Yeah. So any one of you guys can jump in. Vante, Estelle, any of you guys can jump in on the topic of should love be conditional? Is it conditional or is it non-conditional?
Mm.
And I put the songwriter on the spot for a reason because he writes songs about this stuff.
Do I? Oh my goodness.
He writes songs about this stuff.
Whether it should be conditional.
His next song is going to be I'll Only Love You If You Cook For Me.
All right. Well, I'll answer that question. But speaking on the cook for me, I did have a little note there. Nowadays, as far as like the new generation. I don't think there's so many gender roles. Even with my wife, if she cooks a lot during the week, she's gonna let me know, hey, when are you gonna hop on the stove, or when are you going to do the laundry, or you know what I mean? And then I gotta step up. You know, so far as conditions go, you know what? There has to be conditions. As far as if you're in a relationship versus you're in a marriage, I think there should be conditions. You know, if we're here to grow, we're here to heal together, and as long as you're growing, I'm not gonna say with, because you know everybody grow at their own pace. But if you're not trying to grow or you're not trying to heal, it's been 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, and you're still chasing whatever you were chasing 15, 20 years ago, then you know you got to do what you got to do. I mean, again, me and my wife, we're still going strong. We have 2 beautiful daughters, but if I'm being honest, I do believe in divorce. I do, you know. And don't get me wrong, I love wifey so much that, you know, I'm gonna try whatever I can. Say that she ends up being addicted to whatever. Oh, you know, I'm doing whatever I can to help her, you know, whether it takes 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. But if it's to a point where I know you can't be helped, or you're not trying to help yourself, or it's even deeming my way of life or the kids' way of life, that's a condition for me.
Wow.
You know? Because everyone's happiness does matter. So if you take care of your happiness, you're supposed to take care of your happiness. I'm supposed to take care of my happiness, so that when we're together, there's no toxicity. And if there is, if you're having a bad day, that you come talk to me. You don't throw it at me. You don't put it on me. Let's talk through it. That's a condition, you know. Things that nature. Let me know how to love you. Come talk to me. How was your day? You can vent to me. But if you're having a bad day and that's another thing, I make sure I don't come home with work problems, or I start fresh. If I'm mad, she would never know it, especially if it's at work. But if I am upset with her, oh, she's the first to know it. But not in front of everyone. I would come home and talk to her. Hey, at the grocery store, you kind of yelled at me. You know what I mean? I don't know if I really appreciate that. But if I would have said it at the time she did do it at me, I would have blown up, and maybe my reaction would have been a little bit more than what I think it should have been. That's a condition. You know, you can't just be out here.
Yeah.
Sorry, I feel like I'm rambling.
No.
Great.
You're good.
That's good.
I think I see what you're saying. Like, you can't be out here just acting a fool.
Yeah.
No, you can't just get into a relationship or a marriage and say, "Oh, okay, I've made it. You know, I'm done now."
Right.
I like that. Christelle, is there anything you want to add?
I just wanted to ask a question to Vante. When you say conditions, do you mean more like boundaries?
Yeah.
Instead of conditions? Like, you're doing boundary setting, which is kind of a condition, but you still love yourself and you love the other person unconditionally, but through unconditional love, sometimes you require to do challenging things because you love yourself enough and that person enough that you know what course of action is required, and it's not always a pleasant action, right? So that you're respecting yourself in the process, but you're also respecting the individual, because usually I associate unconditional love is taking action that's in a loving way for both individuals, but sometimes like loving, like unconditional love is like a parent, right? Sometimes a parent, to show a lesson to a child, it will not necessarily give the answers or let the child make a mistake, or there's certain ways that a parent will address a situation and it seems cruel, but you love them enough to be there for them without doing it for them.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense, what I'm trying to say.
It does, yeah.
No, I agree with you, because I think there's 2 types of loves. I think there's love where it's like, you know, it's nice, it's friendly, it's fluffy, and then there's tough love which requires you sometimes to step into a space where you're going to have to enforce a boundary, and they might not necessarily like you in that moment. You know what I mean? And I think any relationship that we look at, and I love that, like, you guys all touched on it. The fact is, there is going to be conditions in a relationship of boundaries that are not crossed. You know what I mean? I think you can kind of do the best of your ability, as Vante said, to help someone if they get into something funny, but like when they start becoming disrespectful, like, and everybody has their own things. That could be the girl staying out too late. That could be the guy going to naughty clubs. That could be anything.
Yeah,
but I think
I'm not going to put up with somebody blocking me and unblocking me.
Yeah, exactly. Like those type of toxicity behaviors, there's a level of boundaries, because I think everybody, and we can agree on this and have this topic, has their limit of what they're willing to deal with.
Yeah. Love
or no love.
That's a great point. I think before anyone, and I wish someone told me this before I even got married, and before going in any relationship, especially a marriage, you got to know yourself, love yourself, and self-care has to be a must. You know, you should be going into someone else's life already healed or in the process.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Wow. And you know what? What you guys saying all that sums up why a lot of my relationships failed in my 20s. I didn't come healed. I was broken. I didn't know how to enforce boundaries. Neither did the partner I was with. So, and I saw what that looks like, what those relationships look like when no boundaries are enforced. It's literally the Wild West.
Yeah.
You guys get into fights. No problems get resolved because you focus more on the love instead of correcting the behavior. You say, well, I love you and I care about you, and you say nothing about the bad behavior or what was said during that fight, and then you try to like minimalize it or try to forget about it and say, well, loving you is more important, but it's like at the same time, we also need to view the behavior. So I know myself when I went through like all that phases, and it drove me stir crazy why relationships would end, or I'd be in situationships, I think is what they call them now, the new gen. Nothing was able to stick. But again, I didn't have the self-love and self-care that I had like for myself now that I didn't have for myself before. And I do agree, without that self-care or being able, I would say this, being able to walk away is the biggest form of self-care that you can do. I'm not saying walk away when things get tough right away, but when you've done everything within your power within that relationship, without, like, as I would say, self-sabotaging yourself or compromising your well-being to be with them, I would say there's a little bit of strength in you walking away, because if you have to compromise yourself to be with somebody, I don't think that's really a relationship at that point. That is like something else that we need to explore now.
Yeah, for sure. And that's I think that's probably a bit of a balance that some people probably have some trouble with, because obviously if you're in a relationship, that means you're going to be compromising on some things. You are going to have to get to know your partner and get to know what they want. And that means you're going to be giving. And so, just to make sure that you're not over giving or overdoing something to the loss of the self, So that's where the self-love, I think, comes in, and knowing thyself, so that you have something to go, okay, like a bumper pad. Okay, that's a little bit too much. That's not right. That's not right. But without that self-love, you can definitely be taken advantage of, and those relationships can end up in a really painful place. So definitely not peaceful, that's for sure.